Prepare yourself. Big News Wednesday approaches. Welcome one and all to Big News Wednesday, or Big Presidential Campaign Launch Wednesday with me and Jayar Jackson. Jayar, how's it going?
What's going on, brother? A lot going down. I think we're also going to some of these presidential launches on the show later as well. Will they mean anything? Who knows?
I have thoughts. I think some of them might and others definitely won't. But let's start off with Big Hair News Wednesday. Jayar, you got rid of the dreads after so many years. How are you feeling? Are you liberated? Are you regretful? What do you think?
You would think. It takes me a long time to make decisions. Like when I'm in the grocery store and then eventually someone walks up and says, "You need some help, bro?" I was like, "No, I can't decide." So it's been in the works in my mind for some time. So once it finally happens, there's zero regret. I was done with it. It was 16 years. My last haircut was 2006. So I was like, I think I'm pretty much detached. I'm done with these. I'd like to not have to worry about them every day.
Nice, I like it. And comments are flooding in and people are loving it. We'll have more of those. Although some people are saying stranger danger. But anyway, I'm the exact same way. When I have to make a choice, especially if it's like buying something, I do exhaustive and exhausting research. And then once I choose, the weight is off the shoulders. I just love it. I have a few of those right now that I'm doing. So I respect that. And the hair looks good. So
I appreciate you. I just have to get out of the habit of when I put a shirt on doing this. And every time I lie down on my pillow, not doing this to move it out of the way so I can lie down. Cause there's like an extra bump of like a pillow. No matter in the car, I had to adjust my seats cause it's a little further back, all that.
That is a well-known phenomenon that therapists can help with. It's phantom dread syndrome. It affects millions. And we're gonna try to get you the help that you need.
Appreciate you.
But anyway, with new haircuts, we move forward into a brave new world of the presidential campaign, where the Republican side is like swelling like rapidly. They've got like 8 candidates now. Some of them serious candidates, others Nikki Haley. There's different types of candidates basically. We're gonna be breaking those down, but we have a lot more news besides just that. Ron DeSantis getting some bad political news on one of his big culture war topics. CNN shaking things up. Marjorie Greene acknowledges climate change. That's exciting. And that's all in the first hour. But when we get to the aftermath, we're gonna be jumping into, we talked a lot about how I would say a worrying number of young people seem interested in the, I don't know, like the grifty, like fake masculinity influencers or whatever. Yeah, but how many? We've got some actual polling data that I think is pretty interesting, and some of these results are honestly pretty surprising. Tucker Carlson's show is back, sort of, kind of. It's a show, everyone. We're gonna be talking about that. And then finally, news from around the world and meanwhile in, but this time I'm serious mostly. I'm mostly serious, we're gonna do it. Anyway, along the way, you can send us comments, tweets, super chats and all that, and Jayar and I will respond as we go. But with all that said, Jayar, are you ready to start the show?
I think so. That's a pretty damn good rundown. Let's do it.
I think it's looking pretty good, actually. So why don't we start things off with this?
I thought to myself, why do I continue to get this feeling that America, for the first time in its history, is getting smaller? And what I concluded is because we've had leaders who have led us to being small. Small by their example, small by the way they conduct themselves, small by the things they tell us we should care about.
So that is Christie, who is now officially running for the Republican nomination for the presidency. For how long? We'll have to see. The odds don't look good. I think that he would be willing to admit that. But you can see there that he is attacking not only Joe Biden, but also Donald Trump, calling him small. And it's gonna get even more aggressive than that. But the reason I wanted to play that video isn't just to lay out that this is going to be a pretty, that clip wasn't super aggressive, but I think it'll be an aggressive candidacy. But also that was basically how he launched it. He's doing these like town halls in New Hampshire. He was in Manchester, New Hampshire there. It's expected that it's probably going to be kind of like a small, narrowly tailored campaign, which is funny because he's talking about how politics has become small. Well, he's focusing on just New Hampshire basically, which is a strategy, and you can save money that way. You can maximize your chance of standing out in one race. But before we move to more general stuff about his strategy and some of these hacks against him, JR, what do you think about this strategy of really focusing on New Hampshire?
Yeah, I was wondering that if it was like as obvious as it seemed, because he was talking about how he came there, and it's because of you guys. We'll get to maybe some of the things that he was saying, but no, it's a bit of a different approach. And this, as we dig into what eventually will be his actual policies and stuff like that, we'll of course see the problems with Christie. But no, when it comes to maybe having an innovative way of going about this, he's laser focused on Donald Trump, as we can probably see here, but also talking about the things that about him, not just, he's this and he's that, and name calling and defending themselves, because Donald Trump is always on the attack. This different approach, I think, even though, he's saying I'm in it to win it, it's maybe to dismantle that front runner and make sure that they finally get rid of him, maybe on actual principled terms that maybe even crazed Republicans won't be willing to get behind, because we know a lot of them don't. But maybe his niche thing is doing that, because we see guys that run for president and they're looking just to maybe get the vice presidential nod. It seems like Christie's here to take out the cancer of the party, which sadly there's a lot more of it.
Yeah, it looks like that's what his plan is. I think we're gonna have to evaluate how likely we think that is, and we're gonna be evaluating his efforts to do that along the way. But that seems like what his plan is, and like I'm trying to think, JR, of other Republicans. I'm not saying that he has a good chance of doing that. I don't think anyone on the right has a good chance of accomplishing that goal. But is there anyone that you think has a better chance
of taking out Trump specifically?
Like if your goal
winning?
was, I'm gonna run, I'm probably not gonna become president, but I am going to really hurt this guy and make it impossible for him to win.
You would have thought Ron DeSantis, because he just pulls that high, not because he can do it or he has that personality to do so, but because he has enough of a voice. How many people are gonna listen to Chris Christie, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence? But honestly, Mike Pence could play that role if he started saying things that anybody gave a damn about, outside of, I'm a boy from Indiana and I once met Ronald Reagan. Oh, you fine, we got it. And I kissed Donald Trump's ass for several years. True, bro. But he could have that position, he just doesn't there. I don't see anyone else doing it, but because you have to have enough of a bullhorn, and hopefully Chris Christie does. At current point, he's polling like 1.5, but that's because he just jumped in.
Maybe. Well, why don't we take a look at him being more aggressive? Let's jump into this.
So let me tell you something, everybody. The grift from this family is breathtaking. It's breathtaking. Jared Kushner and Ivanka Kushner walk out of the White House and months later get $2 billion from the Saudis. $2 billion from the Saudis. You think it's because he's some kind of investing genius? Or do you think it's because he was sitting next to the president of the United States for 4 years doing favors for the Saudis? That's your money. That's your money he stole and gave it to his family. You know what that makes us? A banana republic. That's what it makes us. So he may get 30% again. I'm not sure. Maybe he'll get more. Maybe he'll get less. But let me tell you what he'll know in 2024 that he had no idea of in 2016. He's in for a fight to get it.
Okay, so calling out, I think, very obvious corruption. The Kushners, Jared Kushner and Ivanka Kushner, he called her? I think she's technically still Trump, isn't she? It doesn't matter, I don't care, but I think she's still Trump. But anyway, they were close to Trump. It's expected that they still are, and that if he were to become president again, he would be. And Jared Kushner's investment, whatever, was given $2 billion by the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia, even though the board governing it said that was a bad idea. They were overridden by the government. This is like the most obvious attempt to influence somebody close to the potential next president of the United States that I've ever seen. So I'm glad that he's pointing that out. And I'm glad that he's saying we're gonna be aggressive and all that. Was that aggressive enough though? Is he gonna be able to bring it? Like, we know that he must think that this is a long shot bid. I don't think that he has huge aspirations for his career outside of this run. So in theory, that should free you up to know that like I don't have to pull my punches and I don't have to worry about him attacking me because this isn't about me. This is about me landing blows. Like imagine if a boxer goes out and doesn't care if he gets punched. He is just going to hit that person as hard as he can. That's what Chris Christie could be. I don't know. This was more aggressive than the other stuff, Jayar. Will he be that person?
Yo, I like it, bro. I like it. And this, as he keeps going through these things, he's saying things that maybe a complete political, on the other side of the aisle type of opponent might be saying. He described what Ivanka and Jared were up to as far as the amount of money that they took. No Republican talks like that. No Republican talks about the grift of the Republican Party and the people surrounding Donald Trump. It happened incessantly throughout his administration. People got on board so they can make money, get some kind of political power and position, if outside of the cash, of course, that comes with it. And it's the first time someone from that side of this kind of prominence would say, they stole your money. Yo, that's the kind of stuff that we hope even Democrats say that don't say it. Yeah. They stole your money. That equals banana republic. Everything that you said, you thought they were doing over there in Saudi or with other these allies, that's actually not the case. They were doing it for the money. How much longer are you gonna be that sucker to be part of this system? They don't say stuff like this. And this is one of those moments when you're gonna see people like me start applaud Chris Christie for saying this, and then have to wait in a couple weeks go, oh yeah, I forgot Chris Christie and his policies.
Yeah, the only way I like everything that you said. The only modification I would probably make is generally people do not like when you point out that they've been suckered. That's the tough part. I would say, there's no shame in the fact that they conned you. They've got some of the richest, best connected media people helping them in their con. Maybe I would finesse it that way, but I do totally agree with you. Yeah, we're gonna see. Let me say this to close before we go to the attacks against Chris Christie. Obviously, Chris Christie, it's maybe easy to forget when he spends so much time attacking Donald Trump that he's also a Republican. By the way, one who is willing to use his office to accomplish his own corrupt, selfish ends. Bridgegate, everyone check that out. And he's definitely a Republican. But let me ask you this: of the declared candidates, which it seems like they're the ones who are probably going to run. Maybe there'll be some other minor ones. If you had to choose from amongst them, not the person who's gonna go up against Biden, but let's say the person who becomes the president, who would you choose on the Republican side?
If I had to, anybody that's in currently, right?
That's running.
Because of course some of them more will be added. See, this is the thing, I need to analyze positions, policy positions, but whatever. I'll take the bait. I'll make me go on record and make me look like an ass later. At this point, Chris Christie.
I think I would choose Chris Christie too.
Right?
If I had to choose from amongst them.
If nothing else, he's saying things that even could look damaging because he's like, I'm gonna be honest. Who knows if that will stick around? Maybe we'll get to those points when he said, I'll be honest, when asked about the potential pardoning of Donald Trump if he's convicted of something. Yeah. That looked bad and he's willing to do that. So there's some inkling of, he's at least willing to be honest, even when it's bad for him.
Yeah, and he's gonna do, if he were to be, elected, he would do tax cuts for the rich and deregulation, all that. But all of them are going to. It's just with some of the others, they'll be more hostile to democracy and constantly pushing culture war topics that Chris Christie has rarely seemed to be particularly interested in.
And ignoring reality, like when it's right in your face, acting like what you're seeing is not what you're seeing.
Yeah. Well, so we've been clear. What about all of you in the audience? What do you think? You have a better choice? I doubt it, but maybe you do. Okay, with that said, let's turn now to the reaction. Chris Christie is running for president. How do you think they're gonna attack him? Based on what you know about the Republicans, conservatism, America, 2023, how do you think they're gonna attack him? Well, Donald Trump decided to do a 1-2 little punch. First in a bleat, saying, how many times did Chris Christie use the word small? Does he have a psychological problem with size? Actually, his speech was small and not very good. It rambled all over the place and nobody had a clue of what he was talking about. Good grammar there. Hard to watch, boring, but that's what you get from a failed governor who left office with a 7% approval rating and then got run out of New Hampshire. This time it won't be any different. So that would count for me as subtle for Trump to continually use the word size. He did not linger in the territory of subtle for long. I'm not gonna show you the video, but here's a shot of another one of his bleats where some right-wing troll has edited his town hall thing, Chris Christie's, into a buffet. You get it? You get the sharp political satire there. Well, what they're doing right there is they're referencing his weight. That's it. There's nothing deeper than that. Donald Trump is making it about his weight. His son was even worse with his Krispy Kreme thing that he bleated out or whatever. So if you thought that after Chris Christie saying that they're small and they make us small, that maybe he would take the high road. Yeah, not so much, Jayar.
Yeah, of course. I remember when I first saw it and I was like, oh man, because I didn't see this happening right away. When he first announced, I was like, I'm waiting for Trump with the fat jokes. And I didn't see them right off the bat. I was like, oh man, it's taking them a little while. Maybe it, and I literally saw it once I was about to congratulate them for holding off for one day and they couldn't. Again, so if you think about it, what's the purpose? What does that mean? So Chris Christie, according to Donald Trump, according to probably who knows what his doctors say, is obese, is overweight. What does that have to do with this? What does that have to do with the fact that your family stole money? What does that have to do with the fact that you made all these promises that Chris Christie talked about in your time in office? What about the devastation you did with the economy, deficit, debt, all these things that he's talking about? Does that, so if Chris Christie was much lighter, none of that would mean anything here? Yeah. Like it's easy to bring this up. I hope he confronts it head on and points out, yo, I'm giving facts. They're talking about body size.
Yeah.
Clownishness. Keep calling them out.
Yeah. It's not surprising. It's also like, I don't know why it's 2023 and I expect some level of logic or reasonableness.
John.
You should not be attacking people based on their weight because their weight doesn't actually have any reflection on how they'd be as president, their moral value, their intelligence, anything like that. And people need to remember that. Because some people who normally would not attack people for their weight, when someone's really bad, they will. They feel freed up to do that. That's not actually how anything works. But in particular, like, don't attack anyone on their weight. Donald Trump is like, if under the medical definition, he would be morbidly obese, right? I'm not criticizing him for that. I'm simply pointing out that if you were to run the numbers, he would qualify. So why is he attacking Chris Christie on his weight? Like, there's not even like well, I'm a 4-year-old like jerk, and I really want to attack you in a dirty way, but glass houses, there's not even that. So how about this? Nobody attacked Trump for his weight, and nobody attacked Chris Christie for his weight. Attack them because they're both horrible. How about that? Can we do that instead? Anyway,
it is positivity from you. What's wrong with you?
I know, I'm an idiot, basically. Attack me for being an idiot, not for my weight. Now, with that, Trump and Don Jr. were not the only people attacking Chris Christie for his weight. Why don't we jump right into this?
Hey, before we go on, I just want to take a moment to address something because I really do feel terrible about it. Earlier on the show, I was making an analogy to describe the Republican voter pool. And I made a comment that I meant to be lighthearted, but immediately realized was hurtful toward Governor Chris Christie. I should not have said what I said. I deeply regret it, and I sincerely apologize to the governor.
So it's John Roberts of Fox News apologizing for comments he made about Chris Christie. Now, someone on the news, especially Fox News, being willing to admit when they've done something wrong, when they've said something offensive, I think is noteworthy, probably admirable. That said, why don't we play what he said and we'll evaluate it based on that?
To use a modification of a metaphor that we were using in the panel earlier today, it's like you have 2 milkshakes, right? The Republican Party is 2 milkshakes. And this one, representing almost half the party, because that's what the polling shows, has got 1 straw in it, and that's Donald Trump's straw, right? And the other milkshake, which represents the non-Donald Trump part of the Republican Party, has how many straws in it now? And now we're gonna have Chris Christie's straw in there. And judging by Chris Christie's physical stature, he could drink a lot of that milkshake if he wanted to, but ow.
Okay, so the guy in the middle like looked away. He didn't want to be involved. And then is that? I apologize. I'm not even trying the name of the woman in the blue dress, but she registered her disapproval vocally. So I like that. So he did apologize, Jayar. But the way that he apologized, he said, as soon as I said it, I realized that I shouldn't have. Which to me is the sort of thing you say when you like kind of accidentally insult someone. There was nothing accidental about it. It was a specific comment about his weight. That said, he did apologize. So how much credit do you think is
kind of well thought out too? Like it was, this premeditated crime.
The milkshake thing.
This was a premeditated joke or analogy. It was supposed to be humorous in a way, and he was kind of paused and expected laughter. So yeah, I mean, maybe it was a thought process, but there can be those moments that I think he regretted it because he saw the response from maybe his co-host and was like, "Oh, this isn't landing. Now I regret it." And if it was in an environment that was okay and open to this, he'd move on more. That's what this whole mob mentality is. That's why the Republican Party has gotten to this point anyway. Donald Trump saw some openings, exploited them, and said, I can run off of racism, bigotry, homophobia, and all this stuff. It's really easy. And he exploited it and went hardcore into it and then exploded. And more people were like, oh yeah, we can do that more now. When the environment doesn't allow it, in that case with Roberts here, I believe that's his name. Then he was like, I don't feel good about this anymore. That's how you temper these types of things from growing to those points. Because the rest of people listening have to be principled enough to say, yo, we're not accepting fat jokes on this topic right now.
I hear what you're saying. On the other hand, I will retort by saying Fox has gone woke. So you hate to see it. They got to be Bud Lighted. Anyway, Christie is not the only person sort of making it official today. Why don't we jump right into this?
Wages are dropping. Recession is looming. Our southern border is under siege, and the enemies of freedom are on the march around the world. And worse still, timeless American values are under assault as never before. We're better than this. We can turn this country around, but different times call for different leadership. Today, our party and our country need a leader that'll appeal, as Lincoln said, to the better angels of our nature. That's why today, before God and my family, I'm announcing I'm running for President of the United States.
Mike Pence is, as we sort of expected, I guess, running for president. So that is happening. And he struck, vocally at least, a mostly positive tone in there. There were multiple references to Ronald Reagan, which, by the way, Ronald Reagan was president like 40 years ago. At what point is that not really a reference that hits? Anyway, he said things like, we're better than this. We need to appeal to the better angels of our nature. Admittedly, he had just gotten done putting up shots of, oh no, trans swimmers and stuff like that. So he's demonizing based around the exact same culture war topics as Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, all of that stuff, trying to turn people's piranha-like rage at marginalized communities into political benefits for him. But he also talks about angels while he does it. So I guess he's the good one, JR.
No, exactly. That's the whole thing. Mike Pence is the illustration or the embodiment of the former Republican Party, which of course was horrific already, but they hid enough of it and they thought they could keep it under wraps, which they did for a good enough time. I guess the explosion of Donald Trump, maybe more people access to information on the internet, is a bit killing that. But there's a section of the Republican Party, which I think can be led by Mike Pence, that still thinks they can go back to that same thing where they say these horrible and insinuate these horrible things while they say it with a buttoned up look and hope that no one notices how horrific they are. And he's gonna dive right back into that again. So he'll give the culture war thing. So he's like, this is where we are as a party. I'll use it for my own sake. But at the same time, I can't say it out loud. That's Donald Trump territory. Let me insinuate that I'm not like that while still being like that. Yo, it's not gonna work. What that transitions into or translates into for folks, I think, is I have no idea what you're talking about. By the way, when he was even announcing, I don't know, he has a look on his face like he's asleep. Like, and that's why I'm gonna do it this time. I was like, bro, wake up. Like, there's gotta be a level of excitement and presentation. They're right there. Like, who really wants to follow that guy?
I know, it's just, he doesn't seem excited by his presidency and he's like shaking his head sometimes, but that's not the same thing as being exciting. And I will stand by what I've said previously about not focusing on people's physical appearance. But I will say, I think that in the presentation of things, contrast is important. And visually, his hair to me reads as the exact same color as his skin, and that just seems weird. I don't know. I'm white, I can say that, right? It's the same color. They should be different in one way or another. I don't know.
Did you notice?
It's just, it fits perfectly with how otherwise boring his pitch is. It's like if ChatGPT was supposed to make a launch video, It's got a video of an eagle, and there's a person with a hammer, and the music swells, and then he's standing there like that. It's like, oh, it's so boring.
Standard, bro. So standard. By the way, even you mentioned Ronald Reagan, and they got to stop talking about Ronald Reagan from 45 years ago. Yo, the same thing though is when they show that image of Pence in there with him, Pence's hair was black, like dark. That's how long ago it was. And Mike Pence's white hair. Now it shows maybe it's been that much time that we shouldn't be talking about him anymore. And it's for a person who then has all this damn white hair sprouting up on me. I think I have a leg to stand on there.
100%. By the way, so on the one hand, Mike Pence is running for president against Trump. On the other hand, even though Donald Trump did his damnness to get him killed, Mike Pence has largely not even criticized Donald Trump. So, you win some, you lose some on the loyalty sweepstakes. How is that gonna be read by the MAGA base? Not well for Mike Pence, because that video that we just showed you was posted on Twitter, and the replies to that were scorching. There's no way in hell you'll win anything. Traitor! You Pence are you're a traitor because the mob that tried to overthrow an election didn't succeed in killing you. You had a chance to do that, but decided to undermine your boss and protect the deep state for 4 years. And Pence equals Judas, which for Mike Pence is a particularly low blow because I have a feeling he's super into that Bible stuff.
This is amazing. I'm sorry, last thought, I promise we'll let you guys go. Progressives gave Mike Pence hell for that entire time he was vice president, for copying Donald Trump, fawning at Donald Trump, moving his water bottle around the room like Donald Trump, looking at him like this. And then somehow these supporters of Donald Trump can walk around and say, after 4 years of you being a traitor and undermining him at every turn, are you effing kidding me?
Yep.
Reality does not exist.
No, so unfair. It's unfair. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna turn to other news in just a bit, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody, let's see what's going on out there. First of all, although I keep saying let's not judge people based on their appearance, there are a lot of conversations about hair. So Nerdopithecus says, dude now looks like the badass that joins your party in an RPG. I like that one. Michael Gonzalez says, Jayar is sporting the Cornell West look. Oh. Yes, but he's not yet running for president, to be clear. We'll see. Although Moada says, we don't see Jayar's hat because it's in the ring. That is good. Mo Boogie says 2 legendary dreads laid to rest. Busta Rhymes in 2005 and now Jayar Jackson 2023. Dreads in peace. The cut looks good though, brother.
Yeah, I mean about 2005 is about the last time that I had my hair like that.
Wow, okay. Lisa Delo, thank you for sticking with us on YouTube, being a member, much appreciated. Tyler Hackner gifted a membership, thank you, Tyler. Matt Sella gifted 20 Damage Report memberships. Thank you, that is legitimately crazy. You should get yourself checked. But before that, thank you. I do appreciate that. Resilient Dragon, member for 29 months, says happy Wednesday to my 2 favorite hosts. Thank you so much. It's really nice of you. Okay, 777 Harlan says loving the new looks and new locks.
Oh man, I gotta change my dragon name now. I just realized.
I mean, you can still cause dread. It was always versatile before. Okay, Ash, member for 5 months, says it's my 40th birthday today. Can I get a birthday shout out? You can. Happy birthday. I personally can't even imagine being 40 years old. I can't even imagine being 30. But I hope that it's good for you. I'm joking. Happy birthday. Athena Onkin said, member for 29 months, says, so glad I found the show, which helps save my sanity. Thanks, John and Jayar. Like the new hair, yours too, John. Thank you. Thank you. David Lucero says, America needs a Lapland. I don't know. I'm not sure which story that's a reference to, but thank you for the comment. Much appreciated. Okay, let's see. Jamal G says, I have more white hair than Jayar and I'm not even 40 yet. We're really focused on that 40 mark. I keep hearing that it's the new 30, but not from those of us chatting today. It doesn't seem like it. Okay. I am Sock says, did John finally find that cow that's been licking his head? How dare you, sir?
Wow, you're still catching it. John's hair has settled in. There's always a bit of a growing phase when it's like in between where you want it versus where it was. That's when you were catching the most hell. And I must say, you've entered the realm of where you want to be, I think.
Thank you. I'm much more happy now. Not only like objectively happy, but also I was looking back to, I don't know, a couple months ago, and what was I thinking? And why did nobody say anything?
Before you were growing it?
I trusted you people. I trusted my producers, and they didn't say anything. Anyway. Okay, Haven the 701 Dragon says the NFTs say Trump is ripped. That's true. If the only idea that you get of Trump is off of his NFTs, then I suppose you can understand why he would feel freed up to viciously attack people like Christie for, nature, I suppose. Anyway, Late Bloomer says, having trouble concentrating on the news today because I am so distracted with how yummy Jayar looks with his shorter, grayer, mature locks. Jesus.
No longer locks. But yeah.
I'm gonna need you to cover up your hair because we've got important news coming, Jayar, and I don't want them having trouble paying attention to it. Anyway, okay, let's see. Corporations Ate My Baby says, no way that John's new baby, Trixie Iadarola, will be a Nepo baby, trust.
Did they guess the name yet? Is it
no,
Trixie?
The name is, no. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I was just gonna say, I'd like to nominate Trixie.
I mean, I like it as a name. I think the reason they guessed that in the social break is because I had said that one of the names that I liked that I was overruled by my wife was, I like the name Jinx. I think it's cool. It's like a rebel's name,
Unless she comes an athlete and then misses the free throw at the end of the game or something.
That's true.
Then it sticks.
That's true. But what if you're continually beating the Jinx? As the Jinx? I don't know. I think it's good. I could see it as a wrestler. Anyway, basically just hoping my child ends up being a wrestler. Okay, with that said, Jinx is a cat's name. People are saying, why can't it be a human name too? Okay, let's turn now to far more serious stuff, everyone. Ron DeSantis has been dealt at least a temporary loss on one of his big culture war topics, with a federal judge partially striking down Florida's ban on gender-affirming healthcare for transgender minors. What he says to support that decision, though, I find even more interesting, and I hope it really needles Ron DeSantis right now. So this is US District Court Judge Robert Hinkle granted a preliminary injunction that blocks enforcement of a law signed by Ron DeSantis and rules that prevent a group of trans youth who sued the state from accessing widely accepted care, including puberty blockers and hormone therapy, as their legal challenge plays out. Now, the thing to bear in mind here is that this is limited to them. They will be able to access this care. Unfortunately, it does not free it up for everyone in the state. So the fight continues, but we do have more information. So this follows a lawsuit against the state's Surgeon General from a group of families, the ones that we've been talking about, who argued that the state could not, quote, demonstrate any rational basis, much less an important or compelling one, for the transgender medical bans which prevent transgender adolescents from getting safe and effective medically necessary health care. They are 100% objectively right in that. There is no objective medical or societal reason to go against what the mainstream medical organizations have been saying for years and years and years. There just isn't. There is an ideological reason to do that. There is a personal political ambition reason to do that, but nothing that has anything to do with an interest in the kids, the families, or society. I want to read what Judge Robert Hinkle said, though. The elephant in the room should be noted at the outset. Gender identity is real. The record makes this clear. The medical defendants, speaking through their attorneys, have admitted it. Any proponent of the challenge statute and rules should put up or shut up. Do you acknowledge that there are individuals with actual gender identities opposite their natal sex, or do you not? Dog whistles ought not be tolerated. So this is just a step along the path, I would assume. We're gonna have appeals, obviously, and even if there weren't, this doesn't free up all of the families in Florida to once again get the sort of care that has been fairly routine for years and years at this point. So I don't know where this goes, but Jayar, what do you think?
Yeah, listen, so when a judge like this says something is supposed to be based in medical and scientific evidence, and he's saying it's obvious that there's something real here when it comes to folks experiencing it, your basis for it can't be, I think it's weird. It's a sweeping, broad legislation like this that would keep folks from being who they are and doing what they want. That basis is like your opinion, man, and that's not how democracies work because you don't like something. There's plenty of things I don't like. Take all them damn Priuses off the road. I think they're ugly. Who cares what I think? Who cares that Priuses drive 55 miles an hour in a slow lane? Only me. So why should I be the one that's delegating whether or not you can buy a Prius or not? There's these little things. Just because you have a personal issue with something, then everyone else has to follow then behind it. Now, if Priuses are a danger to society and they're blowing up on the roads and harming people, there's actually evidence scientifically and something we've seen behind it. If that's not there, that's just you. Deal with it, bro. Now, what we've gotten by is because we want to downplay science, we want to downplay evidence and downplay smart people so that when these things come up, it can be based in people's opinions and in the back and forth fight between one political party and another, and whether or not your team is winning or not winning. Nothing with reality. And again, these folks don't think about trans youth, don't think about trans adults, don't think about the families surrounding them until they need them to use them for political purposes like this, which tells you they don't give a damn either. So of course the science isn't something they're looking into because they actually don't care about the issue, they care about using the issue for themselves. And maybe I'm surprised to see a judge say something like this. I don't know if it's gonna catch on, but it should be highlighted that this is the difference. Science and medical reality versus someone just not liking it and going, ew.
Yeah, this is just a combination political ideology and religious mishmash of bigotries masquerading as a medical opinion. That's all it is. That's all it is. And I understand there might be some people that either like are, I don't know, still hostile towards trans people or the idea of being trans or ignorant of it or don't care about it that might not feel that this is a fight that they need to engage in. First of all, I would say free your GD mind. Jesus, these are people. But also, are you comfortable with a status quo of religious conservatives just getting to decide which medical treatments are immoral? I mean, they've already done it obviously with abortion, now they're doing it here. What other medical interventions or medicines that might affect you and the people you know, might they suddenly decide, well, if we talk about this a lot and we ban it, then maybe we can win Congress back? It's clearly expanding. And also, I would say to close this out, Jayar, have you seen the new remodel of the Prius? I don't think it looks nearly as bad.
I saw the new remodel of the Prius, and I told my kid this because I've indoctrinated him into hating Prius as well. I said, "You see that new Prius, kid? Actually, looks pretty good."
Oh, see, he's open-minded. I mean, I'm not getting one or whatever, but yeah, it doesn't look bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, and look, if that gets more people to drive a hybrid, great. Anyway, with that said, why don't we move on to very different news, starting with this.
We have news now to report involving our own network. News to us here at CNN and you at home. CNN's chairman and CEO, Chris Licht, is leaving the network.
Chris Licht is out just a few weeks after the major brouhaha in the media over the Donald Trump town hall. Now, was it that caused this? We can't say for sure. All I can say is, yeah, probably. I can say, no, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't have any insider sources inside of CNN, but I don't know. It seems pretty suspect. Now, it's not to say that there weren't already issues. You could say that it's less that one caused the other than that both were caused by the fact that there were some systemic problems at CNN. And that specifically the Donald Trump town hall trying to get Republicans to love CNN when they've been told for years and years that it's the deep state and it's run by lizard people, which seems like a bad strategy. By kowtowing to Donald Trump is a bad strategy because you're not gonna get the Republicans and you're just gonna PO a bunch of the libs that like your content, your anti-Trump content. That seems like a bad call. You combine that with the fact that he apparently in some of these decisions had really shaken morale at CNN. There was a bit of an insurrection going on inside of there. It didn't seem good for him, and now he is going to be transitioning out. Jayar, what do you think?
It seems pretty quick, everyone was getting their licks in on him. Then he had to go home and lick his wounds. But still, if you want to be serious about the whole thing, which I promise I will be now, I actually didn't realize how quick this really was. I was like, has it been just about a year? This has gone down in this much of a quick turnaround. I think can illustrate when you're looking to do something now different or try something different. I think he really thought it would work. I'm not sure how much his political leanings are with this stuff, but he really dove into the idea that, yo, let's just go for all this bottom feeder stuff. We'll invite in all the craziness because, yo, more eyes, more viewership, more money. But yo, you're working with a network that people, I think, had an idea that it's still this middle ground network. It still had the Foxes, the right, MSNBC is the left, and CNN is in the middle. They still held that for a large majority of Americans. All the political wonks that talk about it, including us, we know the nuances and differences because we sit here and we're crazy. But CNN, then it was a pretty obvious shift to try and be something different, and it felt a little artificial. So even folks that maybe they thought they would be attracting, they were like, oh, look what he's trying to get us coming because we're these right wingers. And the lefties and libs and mid ground folks were thinking this feels artificial. Why is he trying to add something that honestly we don't really care about? We see and hear that stuff in other networks. It just kind of annoyed everyone to a degree, and probably worse off much of the staff. That's when the stuff was turning around on him.
Yeah, there had been. I mean, we talked about the big Atlantic profile about him. There were seemingly a lot of issues, not just about the town hall, but about some of the choices that were made for who was going to be on panels, the content of chyrons, a lot of stuff. There was such specific criticisms that they were saying that he had apparently over the last, I don't know, year or whatever, he lost a lot of weight. And apparently had been using, there was that new super rich person weight loss drug or whatever that famous people use. But then he kept claiming that it was just a result of exercise. So that was angering people, that he was like pretending that it was super easy when he was using the super expensive drug. I don't know, none of that matters, but it's representative of this is a person that a lot of people there have a problem with. And you might be able to get away with being that person if your strategy works, if it brings in viewers, but outside of a raise for the actual town hall, it doesn't seem like it's doing that. And so that becomes a dangerous situation for you. We do not know who is going to be the long-term replacement for Chris Licht. As of right now, the new interim CEO is going to be Amy Antelis, the current executive vice president for talent and content development, that according to write-ups I've seen today say she has a really good reputation, has backed a lot of their movies and documentary series that have done well. I don't know. That could just be PR as they launch her into the position. Maybe she'll be much better. Maybe, it's always possible. I mean, David Zaslav, chose the last guy, choosing this person. So there's still some of that top-down control. I wouldn't expect that we're gonna see a massive shift in CNN strategy, but maybe at the very least, attempts to court MAGA voters, which are probably a waste of time in the first place, they might be turning from that. Okay, with that said, we're gonna take our second break of the hour. When we come back, we had talked earlier this year about Democrats swapping parties in North Carolina. There's a new bill designed to stop that from happening. We're gonna break it down after this. Okay, everybody. First of all, thank you to those in the chat who let me know the Iron Sheik has passed away, an Iranian American professional wrestling villain from back in the day. It was prior to my time watching, but I am familiar with the Iron Sheik. Had been a wrestler, a very notable, famous wrestler for a very long time. Sad, passed away at 81. Oddly enough, if I remember correctly, the only crossover I have in terms of the Iron Sheik is there had been a documentary about the Iron Sheik that for some reason used a bit of audio of me from the show. I don't remember what the context was or why, and they never told me they were gonna be doing that, but people sent it to me. I don't remember why they used it, but anyway, Hall of Famer, one of the most prominent wrestlers of the last 50 years or so. So
it's always a big deal when you hear a pro wrestler passing away at 81, because so many of them die early. So
yeah, a lot of them die in their 30s and 40s. By the way, Walt points out Jinx is Halle Berry's Bond girl name. That's true. It's a cool name. It's from League of Legends, from Arcane. I don't know. I like interesting names, and we're going in a somewhat interesting direction. Previously, people had been trying to guess what the name was, and someone had come very close, but nobody has yet guessed it. I will say that. Anyway. Okay, let's see what's going on out there. Patrick Depew sent in a super chat to say, meanwhile on the East Coast, Mordor is a place on Earth. They say in Mordor, death comes first. We'll make Mordor a place on Earth. Mordor is a place on Earth. What is wrong with you? Thank you for that. Anyone who watches The Handmaid's Tale, I don't know about you, but that song was stuck in my head for like 3 months, by the way. Okay, Red the Calico Cat Dragon says, is Christie getting ahead of the fat jokes? It is impossible to get ahead of fat jokes in America. Let's be clear about that. They will always be there. Sudoku Dragon says, John, I'm facing eviction. For those that can help, GoFundMe, victim of the system by Robert Tolbert. Thanks, really sorry to hear that you're going through that, terrible. Okay, Colin Hutton says, John and Jayar's wrestling tag team name, the Wednesday Warriors. Well, we do our best work on Wednesdays, and I did think that was a pretty good show. So I guess it works.
Oh, I guess I missed it. I didn't know the show.
You didn't see Wednesday?
Oh, I thought
Ashley,
Wednesday Warriors was the name of a show.
Did anyone watch Wednesday? Well, millions of people watched it, but okay, I'm not the weirdo. You guys are the weirdo. Popular show.
My fault.
Anyway, they're making a second season. Anyway, let's see. I is Wolfie says another one licked the dust.
Did I start that, or were you guys already doing that?
I don't know. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of name guesses. No, you are all wrong.
John is going with Ida. Her name is going to be Ida.
I like the name Ida, but no, not Maya, not Delilah, not.
You need we need an I name, Ivy. Iadarola. Ida Iadarola. I didn't even think about Ida Iadarola. It's like a stutter.
I like the double I. Although technically it'll be the hyphenated name of my wife and 100%. I. But anyway, okay, what do you want out of me? Ms. Anonymous, member for 9 months says, from Janet, AKA Gemstar Dragon, Pence did have a spot of black, the fly that occupied it. I had forgotten about the fly in that vice presidential debate. Fritters guessed Alexandra. I don't know, why did you guess that random name? No, it's not Alexandra, although I do think it's a great name and I would have gone with it. But I was overruled. Anyway, May Money to Building says, oh wait, 15 seconds. Okay, I will get to it after the next one. It's just slightly longer and I wanna make sure that there's room. Much more news to come. Don't go anywhere, everybody. Jayar will be back in just a few. Okay, seeing lots more name guesses in the chat. No, you're all wrong. I am not naming my child lasagna. It's a delicious name, don't get me wrong, but no. Okay, with that said, let's jump into some news. Every once in a while, a politician changes parties. They had previously identified as a Democrat or Republican, then they decide something happened that forces them to switch over. And sometimes that is an incredibly consequential thing. We had talked earlier this year in North Carolina about a Democrat swapping over that not only changed the results for the legislature, giving the Republicans a supermajority, but that allowed them to override the veto of the Democratic governor on an anti-abortion bill. And now some in North Carolina don't want to have to deal with that in the future. So they've got this bill, Senate Bill 748, would require candidates who do a party switcheroo, they say, early in their terms to be removed from office and refund their donors. It's called the Voter Fraud Prevention Act. And basically what it would do is it would require that when a member of the General Assembly switches parties with more than 6 months left on his or her term, that the seat is considered to have been vacated, triggering a special election within 90 days. That official also would have to refund campaign contributions to any donor who requests them. So they would both lose their position, like they can do their, let's say that it's a principle that's causing them to swap parties, as if that would ever be the case. But let's say it is. Then they can switch, but they don't necessarily get to keep the same seat that they ran for based on a false idea of which party they would be representing, and all of the money that they could raise, which could be a significant sum from their constituents who probably at that point feel like they were defrauded, would be able to get it back. I've never heard of this sort of thing before, Jayar. What do you make of this?
It seems like something that maybe has some good elements for the possibility of maybe deterring people from doing this for political purposes outside of principles, as you said. But it's hard whenever it comes to these hardline things like with 6 months left. So if somebody's planning this, they'll wait until there's under 6 months left. There's always ways around things when you have a hard deadline before someone can do something. So they'll plan with it in some kind of way there. Because again, it's about power, money, positions, political, expediency and all this stuff. So they'll find a way. So that's the one problem I maybe have with it. I get the idea of wanting to do this, because look, it completely flips everything that what constituents thought they were getting. It's why when someone wins an election, we heard people, even though they have like, a couple seat majority, they'd be like, mandate, because they talk about all things that they can do now. And they think that can influence constituents to believe that, this is what the majority of people wanted. Now, when it flips simply because one or two or however many people wanted to do that once they're in office, this completely changes democracy on its head for what is it that people want. But I also don't want to take away people's possibility of then, of course, based off of principle and just who they are, switching parties because their party got away from them. It could happen with Republicans. It's just that they're too afraid to. There's plenty of Republicans that hate where the party's gone, but they don't say it. And one thing they're definitely not going to do is switch parties, because then they find themselves kind of in no man's land. A lot of times, if people are starting to feel disenfranchised from their party, they may shift more middle, but doesn't mean they're going to go so far as to complete who they've completely disagreed with. If the Democratic Party, and I'm an elected official, has been doing things completely different than I wanted, I can never find myself then going, everything that those Republicans have been saying suddenly makes sense to me, because they don't. They just wouldn't. It never would happen that way. So it's hard to really find yourself switching with it being based on principle anyway, because that means every principle that you had wasn't in existence anymore. I don't know, man. It seems like a non-answer for me, but it just seems like it's hard to really pin this down.
Yeah, it's tough, like on principle, but then also tough in implementation. So, like, if you could make it so that this works, should you have that? I don't know. Automatically being like, there could be situations in which the actual principled thing to do would be to swap. But then also when you talk about the implementation, so this is basically a reaction to Representative Tricia Cotham, who swapped over, and even though she had been a Democrat for years and years, ran for multiple positions in government as a Democrat, said that she was for reproductive rights, swaps over not only to vote to take away those rights, but to override a Democratic governor's veto. That's insane. That is obviously a betrayal of her voters and of her donors. I don't think that any reasonable person can say anything else. They were not ambiguous about what their positions were. This was not a steady, slow change over time. You just ran as a Democrat and got all these donations. It's an obvious betrayal. It's an intentional betrayal. For what remains to be seen. That's an interesting question. I would love to know. But if switching parties gets you immediately kicked out, then they won't switch parties. They'll just vote for the other side, even though they're still it doesn't actually, I don't think, in practice work. What I think makes more sense is you need to have some sort of way, not that they would automatically get kicked out, but that perhaps it would trigger, a potential recall vote. Like you 30 days later or 60 days later, you have a vote to recall them. The issue with that is then if it was triggered by them switching parties, then again, they just wouldn't switch parties.
Exactly.
And if you just always had the capacity to trigger recalls, I think that there should be a system for recalls. I think that Kyrsten Sinema is a great example of why that would be a good thing. But then we also know that sort of thing can and is gamed. In California here, it's gamed constantly to do pointless recalls that aren't actually supported by the people. So it is a difficult thing to fix, but I definitely I think it's something that we need to continue to think about, because this is not super rare that this happens. Like we've seen this before. Kyrsten Sinema is a great example of it. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, it's hard, because I was thinking even just, you have to complete your term and then switch parties and run again. But then that's still tough too, because as you said, they'll just sit back and stay within the party and sabotage.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say though, while I don't have the solution, I can say that I utterly despise many of these instances of this. In some cases, I also hate when people run, lose, and then decide, I'm just gonna run as an independent, even though I've been rejected. I'm just gonna try to ruin it for the party that rejected me. I hate that too. I go from Connecticut. I experienced that with Lieberman. But anyway, with that said, we are running a long time, so why don't we jump into our final story of the hour?
Right here, it says that you say the reason why people are coming to America today is because of violence, food insecurity, severe poverty, corruption, climate change, and the COVID-19 pandemic. Did you know that there are over 500,000 homeless people in the United States today? And as a matter of fact, the homeless population rose significantly since 29. That's for Americans. So we have homelessness here in America.
So that is Marjorie Greene acknowledging the real struggles facing America, that there is a lot of homelessness, that it has risen precipitously over the past few years, that we are affected by many natural disasters. The issue is that she is not mentioning those things because she thinks they're serious problems that need to be fixed. She's only mentioning them as some sort of rhetorical joke to stop migrants from coming. Because when people say that migrants come because there are difficulties in the countries that they're coming from, so they come here looking for a better life, she, with like the brain of a nematode, thinks, well, if I pretend to think that our country sucks, I guess they won't come. I don't think that's gonna work, Marge. But she goes on to talk more about natural disasters.
Natural disasters, talk about climate change. This is the 4th largest country in the world. We have an extremely diverse climate. We have a wide range of natural disasters. 97 natural disasters occurred in 2021. I don't think this is very safe for migrants here in America. We had 97. How many are they having in their country? These natural disasters include wildfires, heat waves, droughts, flash floods, winter storms, cold waves, tropical cyclones, and on and on and on, but yet they need to come to our country because of climate change? That doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not a safe country either, by the way. In America, there were 1,313,000 violent crimes in the US, and that was in 2020. I can't imagine what the numbers are since then, since crime has come up.
It is such a stupid person waste of our time. She thinks, well, I've seen people like Katie Porter and AOC, and they make points that are smart, and people say that they're cool, and they have statistics, so I guess I'll try to do that. The issue is, again, nematode brain. She doesn't know what she's saying. First of all, the fact that she's talking about a massive rise in unhoused population that occurred during the 4 years of the Trump administration is an obvious slight against the Trump administration, but she's not even thinking about that because she thinks it's gonna stop migrants from coming here. It is, the whole point of it is a maxed out condescension towards migrants. Obviously, this isn't going to work, but she likes performatively doing it, because the idea is, if this were to work, if her is saying, well, we have wildfires, so the fact that your countries might be racked worse by climate change means that it would be dumb to come here. For that to work, you would have to believe that migrants are even dumber than Marjorie Greene. They're not, but she likes pretending that they are. So it's a fun little game for her to get to do this, condescending to desperate people who just want to contribute to America while enriching their own lives. And along the way, briefly acknowledging some of the actual struggles facing our country that tomorrow she will go right back to refusing to admit exist. What do you think, Jayar?
100%. This is the way that they should approach us. Whenever someone like Marge Greene comes up and says these things about what our issues are with the country, from homelessness to the natural disasters, wildfires, climate change, and all this, even if she's saying it tongue in cheek so she can try and deter people or try and make people think that she has an actual point, bring that back up every time she wants to downplay homelessness or talk about how you're doing nothing towards other things. Yo, Marge, there's this lady named Marjorie Taylor Greene who was complaining about this before. Do you want to answer for her? Since she's being all sarcastic now, let her go ahead and answer back for that, because these are real issues that she's then using for her own idiotic points, which actually end up being nothing except for hate. Just illustrate it to her. Let them keep talking themselves in circles. We'll make them answer for it later.
100%. Unfortunately, out of time for the first hour. Thank you everyone on the podcast, watching on the linear platforms. We got more to come in the aftermath. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Aftermath, everybody. I'm John Iadarola. That is Jayar Jackson. Jayar is, of course, the host of the Watchlist. What lists will you be watching on today's episode?
Wow, lots of things watching. Christie's running for president. I don't know if you guys have heard about this. You've been watching on the show today. We go more in depth of the things that he was saying to analyze exactly why he's saying it, if there's a damn chance at all. Also, by the way, you guys, we've got updates on that woman who was shooting at her neighbor. We talked about that yesterday, so there's updates on that because we were quite upset about it. And also randomly, because it is the watch list. You guys ever hang out at a mall and wonder, if I fall off this second floor of this mall and land on the bottom floor, how well could I survive this? One man found out.
I love that you laid that out as a plausible thing that people are thinking about. I mean, look, have I thought about it? Yes, I have.
Of course you have.
I used to hang out at the mall a lot. I worked in the mall. Yeah, I don't want to fall off of things. Now I'm worried about what that story is. Is it it's a video, right? Because you do all video.
Yes, because this is the watch list.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, we're gonna jump into some of your comments, everyone. Nay Jelly says, "I am Jelly Dragon. Hear me squeak." I can hear it. I can hear it. Meredith Putvin sent in a super chat saying, "Ivy Rose, my niece's name." I like that name actually. That's cool. Ivy Rose. It's not, but. Obi Dancy says, "My wife wanted to name our girl Batmanda." Jeez. Maymani into building says, "Jay Izzy, Mac Jackson, and Flightarola into building. I see JR with the Sanfranati homie. The hair looks super anime character. UI too, John." Yeah, it is a little bit anime actually. That's true.
I need to be bright yellow for the full effect, am I right?
You need to do this and we'll animate lightning.
Yes, by the way, yes, May Money and Nate sent me this.
Yeah,
it's quite lovely. It's one of my favorites now.
Nice. You know what you should do for the first half of the watch list? You should be charging up, and then you unleash commentary-wise in the second half. Anyway, so really fast, here are some other name suggestions or guesses. Grumpy Cat says Marge Iadarola. Grumpy Cat, go away. Mo Boogie says Ariana is beautiful. Game of Thrones would ruin Ramsay for me. I actually do really like the name Ariana, but I also think that if you name someone Ariana, everyone will think that you're naming them after Ariana Grande, and I'm worried about that.
Yes.
Even though, like, there was 10,000 Arianas the year that she was born. How does she get to claim the whole thing? Is that even her real name? I don't think Grande is. Anyway, someone suggested Alora, the name of one of the characters from Willow. I would have, but they pulled it from Disney Plus. Twilla and Constance, they're all cool names. By the way, why is everyone guessing like traditionally female names? I haven't said anything about any of that, so back up off me. Anyway, Caranola Iadarola. That's good. I'm gonna go with Caranola. Anyway, with that said, it's time to jump into news. Okay. How much of an issue is the influence of like toxic masculinity? They love that term. People like Andrew Tate, people who try to train young men to blah, 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 and then give them their money, basically. Believe crazy things, believe that you're naturally superior because you're a man, treat women horribly, whatever the dressing is, and then give me your money. That's what they do. How many young people actually believe that? It's a big problem. We've heard from teachers saying that young boys in their classes listen to these sorts of people. Well, here is some actual polling. And they find that just 1 in 5 young people have a positive view of Tate. Now, is that low? Is that high? I'll leave that to you to decide. It still seems too high for me. But what's interesting is that when you break it down beyond just that, you get some interesting stuff. So when you break down respondents by race, 41% of young Black respondents have a positive view of Tate, 31% of Asian respondents, 15% of white respondents. That is very much not what I would have guessed, JR. What do you make of that?
I'm amazed by that. I don't know. I've asked my kid about this because that's how I keep up with the churn. And I was like, yeah, I heard him talk about Andrew Tate, and he says people talk about him in schools. Primarily the boys do. I'm sure the breakdown is probably that way as well, as far as between boys and girls. But as far as young folks, they do talk about him a lot. And he has, I'm not thinking about it, the closest of his friends is a few Black kids and Latino kids, but then like they're always talking about it, and not with the effect of, yo, this guy is insane, this guy is dangerous, this guy's done this, he's done that, he should be a pariah in our society. So there's this, I feel like they do it as a joke, like they joke about him positively because people live on the internet now and it's all memes and stuff. So everything they know about him is based off of some kind of wild, generally, which they would take as a positive thing because it's funny and someone twisted what he said or played a piece of it. No, that was a funny line he said without the context of who he is and what it is that he's allegedly being involved with.
Yeah, that's possible. Definitely possible. The overall number, I'm not super surprised. I mean, 32% of young men and 9% of young women. So it's very much split, in terms of gender identity. And then we're talking about young people. And look, it is designed to appeal to the youngest possible boys. Like, think about like a 12-year-old boy, how desperately he wants to believe that he is naturally, through no fault or effort of his own, better than other people for a variety of reasons. This is the sort of group for whom the catchphrase "boys rule and girls drool" might be persuasive. So give them effectively just a bunch of that on TikTok. Andrew Tate is no more philosophically complex than that. It is designed to appeal to people because it tells them they're better. That's what all of these grifters do. It's why they use misogyny and homophobia and racism and all of that, because it's telling the audience, you're already better. You don't have to do anything. In fact, you're being held back. You're automatically superior. It's no wonder that it's going to be appealing to some people. That's the whole point. And once you lull them into a sense of false superiority, they'll open up their wallet and give you their cash. Now, when you break it down by sexual orientation, nearly a quarter of heterosexual young people have a positive view of him, just 5% of LGBTQ individuals. That's perhaps not super surprising. But anyway, yeah, I don't know really what I expected. I guess I'm glad to hear that it's just 20%, considering how big platforms like TikTok are, especially for young people. I would imagine that he's reached, like a while back, the high point of whatever his influence is. All of the obvious crimes that he's committed are probably gonna hurt his influence going forward. But any other thoughts, Jayar?
I wonder though, is there some cutoff with the young people's approach here? Like maybe 11 to 15 is the positive view, but then once teenagers start getting more of an awareness of the world and what is it he's been about, that's when maybe it tapers off. Because again, Donald Trump has populated with people who don't really know his policies or things that he's done and said in the past during his presidency. They just go, he made that funny joke at that one event in Iowa, and I didn't hear anything else he said, but it was a meme across the internet. People come up with their opinions and appeals about certain folks based off of what they thought he said and was funny. Donald Trump talks trash. Oh, it's so funny. Who cares about policies? I'm 13 years old. I have no clue what we're talking about. But he's funny, so they like him. So I guess there's a concern, but as long as you still understand why these young folks like someone, maybe it could be seen as, I like Tom and Jerry, I also like Donald Trump and Andrew Tate. And eventually, when you're 18, you go, yeah, I'm tired of watching Tom and Jerry. I've seen it over and over again.
Yeah, and you probably just need a few active years of being, an older teen or in your early 20s of realizing that this advice is never going to help you attract women, because it's not designed to. It's designed to make you dependent on Andrew Tate and other men like him. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna move on in just a sec to more news. First of all, though, I want to thank Hazel Mel for 31 months following us in Scotland, by the way. That sounds lovely. Shoegaze Dragon Georgie for 32 months, thank you. Viscountess Silva for 14 months. Thank you very much. Jana Midwest for 28. Thank you all. And with that, let's jump into this.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. This morning, it looks like somebody blew up the Kakhovka Dam in southern Ukraine.
Oh, I wonder who he's gonna blame. I don't know, you'll have to tune in. It could be either side. No, Tucker Carlson is back. That's his show, or what passes for it. He is like a multi-hundred millionaire with like a full professional studio. And his show immediately is lower energy and lower production value than what I set up in my one-room apartment at the beginning of the pandemic. So things not necessarily starting off great for him, but he does have some things going for him. A sort of baked-in audience, a growing appeal amongst people who I guess thought that Alex Jones wasn't crazy enough. And if you think that I'm exaggerating there, I want you to see a little bit of that show. It's 10 minutes long, that's it. Here is one of the major focuses of the show.
You've got to be lied to at full volume over a period of years in order to reach conclusions like that. And of course, we have been. The media lie, they do. But mostly they just ignore the stories that matter. What's happened to the hundreds of billions of US dollars we've sent to Ukraine? No clue. Who organized those BLM riots 3 years ago? No one's gotten to the bottom of that. What exactly happened on 9/11? Well, it's still classified. How did Jeffrey Epstein make all that money? How did he die? How about JFK? And so endlessly on. Not only are the media not interested in any of this, they are actively hostile to anybody who is. In journalism, curiosity is the gravest crime. Yesterday, for example, a former Air Force officer who worked for years in military intelligence came forward as a whistleblower to reveal that the US government has physical evidence of crashed non-human-made aircraft, as well as the bodies of the pilots who flew those aircraft. The Pentagon has spent decades studying these otherworldly remains in order to build more technologically advanced weapons systems. Okay, that's what the former intel officer revealed, and it was clear he was telling the truth. Nobody knows what's happening. A small group of people control access to all relevant information, and the rest of us don't know. We're allowed to yap all we want about racism, but go ahead and talk about something that really matters and see what happens. If you keep it up, they'll make you be quiet. Trust us.
That is just so perfect. Like whatever aspirations he might have at one point had to be an actual news person discussing real news is obviously for self-interested reasons gone. That's it. It's the conspiracy theory fun hour. That's all it is. Well, not even an hour. It's 10 minutes. I guess they couldn't do an hour-long show. So he starts off with where did all the money go in Ukraine? Okay, that's a serious topic. There should be more discussion of that, I guess. Don't ever allow him to pretend that him talking about that shows that he's anti-war or anything like that. He doesn't want the military budget to be cut. He supported the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan. We're not letting him rewrite history. But then there's that injection of the racist stuff. First of all, if you talk about racism, it's a waste of time. Why are you doing that? Also, who organized the BLM riots? What are you even talking about? And it just gets more conspiratorial from there. He goes into like, who killed JFK? Okay, fine. Why is the media not talking about that? What the hell are you talking about? There's been tons of movies and documentaries. The media talked about it for literally decades. And then of course, Jayar, he gets into the aliens. You can't trust the New York Times because they're not talking about the alien spacecraft enough. This is just InfoWars. That's all it is. What do you think?
It's like a pilot episode, right? Except, I don't know, I'm not sure how many pilot episodes for news programs would have them debuting from the woodshed out back or in the woods. Maybe a bear's gonna creep in. Looks like there's some space, a little bit of creatures and wildlife can stroll in. No, this is like a pilot episode trying to figure out or tell them the tone of the episode or the show itself. It's gonna be conspiratorial. We're gonna tell you to only question things that I tell you to question, kind of, because I'm just gonna ask the questions like he did already. What's up with that? We can never really know. Who knows? The same stuff he was doing before, except it seems he may have lost some writers, some producers. I'm not sure how big this team is that he's working with here, but the way that he's gonna go through this, he may have to do a little bit more work. Maybe the folks that he hired aren't, they don't get paid the same as his producers in Fox. So the quality might just change a little bit. It might lean more on him just talking to the camera and just going through his litany of lies, which I don't think is gonna hang on. He's gonna have to add some production values here and maybe even something that catches the eye and ear a little bit more.
Some energy, something. So the only real thing that I care about when it comes to this is I understand that there are some people that are gonna be taken in by this. There's a lot of people that believe whatever conspiracy theory you want. If you package the conspiracy theory as they don't want you to know about this. And if you know about it, then you know something most people don't know. Don't you feel intellectually superior? And so they hand that over to you and they'll believe almost anything because the world is chaotic and conspiracy theories make the world seem understandable. But for those people, if you're watching this show, while I get that inclination, do you understand what the concept of like controlled opposition is? Controlled rebellion, controlled independence? Do you see the game that he is playing on you there? He takes the idea of there are things they don't want you to know about, so they don't talk about those things. Instead, they talk about distractions. That is true in many cases, okay? What distractions? Aliens, The aliens and by the way, I'm not even saying that there aren't necessarily aliens. If you want to cover the aliens, cover the aliens, but don't cover the aliens because you are finally showing curiosity and getting to the most important topics that really matter to working Americans who've been left behind by the establishment and the status quo. That's not what you're doing. You're talking about aliens, okay? You can talk about the aliens, but you're not unveiling secret information that they don't want you to know. They don't want you to focus on the fact that you're probably not gonna be able to retire or ever own a home. That's what they don't want you to focus on. They're not so much worried about the creatures from Alpha Centauri. They're perfectly happy to have you talking about those things because if you're focused on that, you're not questioning tax policy or business regulation, okay? It's controlled rebellion. It is him saying, don't you want to be an independent thinker? Don't you want to see past the veil that's been put over your eyes? Look at the alien over there, huh? Don't you feel independent? Come on, man. We know what he's doing.
I hope it doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't know. He got a lot of views, but he also announced in the show that he might not be sticking around Twitter. We'll see. It might not work for him. It certainly might not bring in money. Anyway, I've unfortunately gone way over. We're gonna do what we can in this. Are we ready to go? Okay, it's time for news from around the world. And meanwhile,
по превосходящим силам агрессора. На территории Курской, Белгородской, Брянской областей моим указом введено военное положение. Также сегодня подпишу указ о всеобщей мобилизации.
So what you just saw right there might seem to be, oh, that was Vladimir Putin. He was doing some sort of address. Well, sort of. Vladimir Putin was doing an address, but it wasn't actually Vladimir Putin. That was a deep fake. We've been warning about those. In this case, it matters though, because that wasn't just a random video somebody made on Twitter. That was put on the actual news. TV stations in Russia were hacked. That video was put on there for, I believe, was it 43 minutes, I think? Wow. And the content really matters here because it was warning that 3 border regions of the country had been invaded by Ukraine's army, that martial law was being declared, and an evacuation was in process. That was not actually happening. Sorry, 37 minutes. So I don't know how they got access. I don't know who it was. I don't know how they made the video. I don't know how they got access to the TV stations. But if you can commandeer a broadcast and spread kind of plausible looking video footage about really important things, you could have a dramatic effect on what happens. What do you think, Jayar?
That's gonna be one of the problems that comes with this, of course, right? And then people responding to it, no matter if, once the veil gets taken off and we clear it up later, actions and responses have already occurred that maybe you can't take back. It's the beginning of a big problem, even when it comes to someone, as tough to deal with, I'll put it that way, as Vladimir Putin. It could still lead to people who don't deserve it to be suffering from it.
Potentially. Someone in the chat says, how do we know that that was actually a deep fake? It wasn't like a canned segment that they already recorded. I understand that, and I'm not saying that's impossible, but they probably wouldn't have named the regions that were being invaded because that's too specific. You wouldn't be able to roll that out if the invasion was a little bit different. Anyway, it doesn't seem like this had a negative impact necessarily, but this is the sort of thing that we're worried about, and we're gonna see more of it. And meanwhile, in Finland, a man got a speeding ticket. In this case, he was a wealthy man. So far, so good. His ticket was for $129,544, or the Finnish equivalent. Anyway, he's one of Finland's richest men. He was driving 50 in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. He says that the speed limit changed suddenly and he didn't have time to slow down. Also got a 10-day driving license suspension. So he was only 20 miles per hour over. He wasn't objectively driving too crazy fast, but what it is that in Finland, your fine is actually determined by your income. He has a very high income, although despite being one of Finland's richest men, he only is worth, I believe they say like $10 million, somewhere around there. So if you have $10 million, $120,000 speeding ticket is still gonna take, it's gonna sting. It's gonna take a little bite out of your net worth there. What do you think about this, Jayar, this scaling ticket system?
All these libs in America want to keep talking about, well, if we live in these other countries, Finland, there's the quality of life is so much better. People love it there. They got issues like this now, huh? I get the purpose, because of course, when you see someone that doesn't make tons of money and they get a $400 speeding ticket or something like this, and then points on their license and suspensions and get this back and insurance rates going up and all that, it's devastating. So maybe they want to even that playing field for the devastation that other folks feel. And also, give me the $129,000, says the government. I get the purpose. It just, I don't know, bro. It's hard to be in someone's bank accounts and then base it off of that, because how much do you base it off of? I mean, people take general Google searches of just us at TYT and be like, oh, you earn $10 million. Really? I wish someone would notify me.
Yeah.
Someone tell my bank that someone stole millions of dollars, because it's not there.
100%.
So it's just hard. I think it's hard to base it off of that when it comes to this type of seriousness of something like this. But maybe they have a foolproof plan. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, multiple countries have a system like this. I don't know exactly where the threshold should be set, what the max is, but I don't hate it. Like, if the speeding ticket is $300 for someone who makes $20,000 a year, someone who makes $1 billion a year, it is an actual influence on behavior in the former case. In the latter case, it's not. It literally doesn't do what philosophically it's designed to do. It's not just designed to raise money, it's designed to change behavior. For a billionaire, it can't. So in theory, you need to raise the amount so it can change behavior. Why is this controversial? I don't know. I have a hard time. I think it makes perfect sense. Maybe we'll have to look into something like that. And meanwhile, on Mount Everest, but eventually off Mount Everest, there was a little bit of an issue. And I'm gonna have to sort of bottom line this because we're running low on time. But there was a climber who was high up on Mount Everest and was in very serious risk of dying. Was in a position where couldn't save himself. Multiple other teams passed by and didn't help or couldn't help it. Look, it's obviously complex. Helping someone risks potentially your own life. But there was someone who did help. Geld Sherpa and his Chinese client. The Sherpa told the client, we need to turn back so that we can help this person. And they did. Geld picked up the guy, carried him down off the mountain, risking his own life, the life of his client, and apparently saved this guy's life. And when there was eventually a national TV address in Malaysia for the original climber, he was obviously very thankful, but not to the Sherpa. He thanked his rescue insurance and partner organizations. He did not mention the name of the man who carried him down off of Mount Everest. And that just seems crazy. There is some debate that he might have also blocked the guy on Instagram. I cannot confirm that, but that is what people are saying, including the Sherpa. Now, he has since thanked him, I guess, but it was only after people raised a major stink about it. I don't understand anything about this, Jayar. I would have a life debt for the rest of my life. I would be thanking this person. I don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure how he benefits from not thanking the person. Even you don't look worse from it. People know that your ass couldn't make it. That story's gonna come out. So why not the person who actually saved you? There's some kind of monetary thing involved. Whoever he did give credit to, maybe it has something to do with some kind of partnership or embarrassment. Who knows? But I tell you what, if I'm that Sherpa or the one person who actually got a chance to save him, which maybe this guy is doing it. Talk about shouting from a mountaintop about what is it really happened. Climb my ass right back to the peak and be like, do you know who saved this guy?
You know what I would do? I would walk on the stage of his little press conference. I would pick him up and I would walk up that mountain. No, but anyway, yeah, it's just you gotta be more thankful. This is why I always help people when I can, but I do have pre-printed forms that say you must thank me publicly, and I make them sign it before I help them. But anyway,
do you think it was a fireman's carry into an F5?
Probably into an F5 right off Mount Everest. Why are we making this about wrestling? Anyway, it's amazing that the Sherpa was willing and able to do that. This deserves to be a movie, and hopefully the Sherpa gets paid off of that movie. Anyway, that is unfortunately all the time we have for the show. Thank you, Jayar Jackson, for joining us. Much appreciated.
Appreciate you guys. See you next week.
Great to have you here. Everyone check out the watch list later on today. Thank you for joining us for Big News Wednesday. Lots more to come this week. For now though, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. I'll see you soon.
you.